So I guess just to start, obviously last time I spoke with you, well, it was actually on election night, but we sat down and spoke before the primary election.
Yeah.
What have you been doing since then? How have things been?
It's been great reconnecting with people. So we are focusing this campaign on exactly what we've been doing since January 2nd, which is engaging voters where they're at and hearing what their needs are.
And tell me a little bit about, obviously I'm familiar with this, but just a little bit about your background, what you've done for jobs over the years, where you grew up.
Yeah, I'm a lifer, born and raised, born at TG, went to school here, grew up in the West End. I live around North 21st right now, and former councilman for this neighborhood from 2012 to 2019, and I work in housing as both a managing broker and a real estate appraiser.
Gotcha. And then tell me, what would be your top priorities if you became mayor for the city? What are the top 3 things you'd really want to focus in on?
A responsible regional approach to homelessness so that we're not reacting to problems and having a siloed approach that just maintains the problem rather than solves it. Making sure people feel safe in their neighborhoods by being more proactive and actually growing the job space so people have middle-class opportunities and a real alternative to the problems that we're seeing right now.
And then what would you say, maybe even connected to that, but what would you say are the biggest challenges facing Tacoma right now?
In a word, people just want more credibility from the city. People just have a feeling from all the conversations I've had at the doors that they just aren't being listened to. I spoke with a woman who teaches at a local high school who in the last 2 years lost 4 of her kids to gun violence. It is on everyone's minds right now, and for some people the lack of urgency is just deafening, and that needs to change.
And speaking of violent crime, we recently looked through statistics and it showed that Tacoma had the highest violent crime rate when you look at population and number of violent crimes in the state besides Ruston. I mean, what's kind of like your thoughts when you first hear that, and what can be done to try to bring that down?
Well, it's heartbreaking. That's the first thought. But in terms of what we have to do, it's not for any want of effort, but what it is for a want of is organization and discipline. I really do have a good feeling about the interim police chief. That'll be a conversation, but just making sure that TPD has what it needs to succeed, but also that we're stepping up as a community to look at long-term solutions too.
Yeah, and what are some of, obviously police with enforcement, but talking about engaging the community, what kind of things can be done at that level? You talked about teens, for instance.
Yeah.
Like, what can be done to help with teen violence?
There have been some successful after-school programs, like summer light nights, for example. We need to work more in tandem with other agencies, so it's not just the city facing this in isolation. So the health department, for example, has some great data on how to reduce gun violence by focusing on it as a public health crisis, for example. But ultimately, it just comes down to making our neighborhoods more livable and doing a better job providing more opportunities.
And then even looking at the national level of violent crime rates in cities, Tacoma is still above some other, quite a few other cities in the nation. I mean, what else can be done in addition to what you said of just trying to bring that down and making sure that, you know, Tacoma is not high up on these lists of places where violent crime happens to people that live here?
So where are we now? We're in Hilltop right now, right? And what really worked for the Hill back in the 1990s when it was Crips and Bloods and there was the shootout with them and the Army Rangers, for example, some Tacomans remember that, it was the neighborhoods coming together. It was TPD and the city, but it was also the Hilltop Action Coalition. In other neighborhoods, it was also Safe Streets, and it was neighbors standing up and saying that enough is enough. And we have to really take a look at empowering our community and also looking at the long-term steps that it's going to take to really revitalize our neighborhoods.
And then why did you want to come here today? I know I asked you where to meet. Why here?
Well, it's a great park. I'm a fan. It's my favorite candy store just down the street, Johnson's Candy, for instance. But also, just case in point, this is really a neighborhood that has seen some positive news too. It's not all gloom and doom. I mean, if you look at the MLK corridor, for example, with the light rail, with the activation of new buildings, with the Hilltop Street Fair, community can fill the darkness. I mean, we can win at these things if we're just determined and courageous and imaginative enough.
And then you brought up homelessness as something you'd want to prioritize. What can be done to help address homelessness in Tacoma?
Well, the first thing is to stop working in isolation because we can't do it by ourselves. I support the effort of working in greater collaboration with the county and surrounding jurisdictions to treat homelessness more regionally so that we're actually fixing the problem and not just managing it. But we have to make sure we're also not painting with a broad brush. The needs of working families who just aren't making enough for cost of living as compared to children aging out of the foster care system, as compared to people with serious mental illness who are self-medicating with hard drugs. These are all completely different groups of people with totally different needs, and we have to be nuanced and not just paint with a broad brush.
And then when it comes to housing in Tacoma, affordable housing for people, a lot of people, get priced out of Seattle, they come to Tacoma, they feel like they get priced out of here into other areas of the county. What can you do to address housing in Tacoma, the housing options and affordable housing?
Well, we need to listen to people and actually figure out what the real challenges are. So it is a supply challenge, but specifically, we need more supply for starter homes, for people who are actually trying to start their first foray into home ownership before they're 40, hopefully. And for rentals, we need actual rentals that Tacoma families can rent, because your average Tacoma family is not going to rent a downtown studio or one bedroom for $2,500 a month, right? There's a total shortage of those particular units. So how can we better leverage our land use, building code, and financing opportunities, whatever we can muster, to really address the specific needs that Tacoma families are saying they need?
And you brought up the interim police chief earlier. I know whoever becomes mayor will play a role in selecting the next city manager and also the police chief. Those are two pretty big roles that the next mayor would have a hand in, correct? What would you be hoping for that?
Well, above all, good process that sets the new person up for success. So whether it's the police chief, the upcoming city manager hire, other department directors, we want to make sure that people don't just feel confident about the people, but that they feel an abundance of transparency and just being heard and listened to with how that person came into the city, because there's a lot of trust to be restored.
And then, talk to me, I guess, if you had to send a message to people watching, voters in Tacoma, whether they voted for you in the primary or they didn't vote for you, maybe they voted for someone who's no longer in the race anymore. What would be your message to them about why you feel that you are the best choice to be the mayor of Tacoma?
Because Tacoma can do better. This election is fundamentally about choosing to bet on Tacoma and the fact that we can be a really great city, that we can do more than just survive. We can actually thrive and grow and live and be a positive example for other communities, or that we can just continue muddling through and just existing. That's fundamentally what this campaign is about, is really listening to people's actual needs and setting aside insider gamesmanship and putting people's needs first. And I think this is really what this campaign is about, and how my administration will govern is a direct reflection of that.
And then, is there anything I didn't ask you that you feel like is important for people to know about you, or just anything you want to add?
Well, I would say just look past the noise and listen to actual Tacomans. And that's what this campaign has always been about, is directly going to where people are, at their doorstep, at their churches, at their town halls, at their events, and just really listening hard and seeking the best policies based on people's lived experiences and based on what the community needs to move forward.